Hey everyone, and welcome. If you've ever been curious about what it takes to start coding, you are in exactly the right spot. Today, we're cracking open the foundational toolkit for Python, which is one of the most popular programming languages on the planet. We're going to get right into the essentials, the basic data types. But first, let's kick things off with a simple question. To you and me, the number 5 and the word 5 are, well, they're obviously related, but they are not the same thing. You can do math with one, but not the other, right? So how does a computer, a machine that really just sees ones and zeros, how does it understand that fundamental difference? Well, the answer is actually pretty elegant. It's all about data types. Just think of a data type like a label or a category that Python slaps onto every single piece of information it sees. This label basically tells the computer, hey, this is a number, you can do math with it, or watch out, this is text, you can print it out. It's the context that gives all that data its meaning. And that's exactly why we're calling this a digital toolkit, because that is literally what these data types are. They aren't just some abstract idea, they are the actual tools, the hammers, the wrenches, the raw materials that you're going to use to build every single program you can imagine. So let's open up that toolkit and pull out our first set of tools, numbers. Now, it's probably no surprise that these are the absolute foundation for any kind of counting or calculation or measurement you'll ever need to do in your code. Okay, let's break this down. Python basically gives us two main types of numbers to work with. First up, we've got int, which is short for integer. As you can see in the example, these are just your plain old whole numbers. Perfect for things like counting your age equals 25. And then we have float. Now, these are the numbers with decimals, and they are absolutely essential for anything that requires precision, like a price equals $19.99. Now, for any of you mathematicians out there, yeah, Python does support complex numbers for some of that more advanced specialized stuff. But honestly, for almost everything you're going to build, int and float are going to be the powerful, reliable workhorses you reach for every single time. All right, so we've got numbers covered. But what about words? How do we work with sentences, names, or just any kind of text? For that, we need to pull out our next tool. And that tool is the string data type, which is just short for string. A string is simply Python's way of handling text. Anything, and I mean anything, you wrap in single or double quotes, whether it's a single letter, a name, or heck, the entire text of a book, that's a string. It is the tool for all things text. And the cool thing is, strings aren't just static boxes for text. As you can see from this list, you can actually do stuff with them. You can smush them together, you can measure how long they are, or even change them all to uppercase or lowercase. They're incredibly flexible tools. Okay, let's move on to a tool that seems deceptively simple but is unbelievably powerful, the Boolean. This little data type is the absolute bedrock of all logic and decision-making in your code. Without it, our programs would just be, well, dumb. They couldn't make any choices. The Boolean, or a bool for short, is just stunningly simple. It can only ever be one of two things: true or false. That's it. Those are the only two answers Python will ever give you when you ask it a direct yes or no question. Like, hey Python, is 5 greater than 3? The answer is true. But here's a little secret, kind of how Python thinks about things under the hood. For Python, true is really just a fancy way of saying the integer 1. It's a really cool connection that shows you how these different data types are all secretly related. And as you've probably already guessed, false is just its way of representing the integer 0. So what this really means is that at their very core, Booleans are just a way of thinking about numbers in a logical sense. 1 is on, or true, and 0 is off, or false. So this is the really crucial part. How do all these different tools, the numbers, the strings, the Booleans, how do they all work together? Well, the concept that ties them all together is something called truthiness. And believe me, it's what allows our programs to feel smart. So here is the big idea. In Python, it's not just the actual values, true and false, that have a truth value. Almost everything can be evaluated logically. Every number, every string, every other piece of data has this built-in truth value. It's either considered truthy, which means it acts like true, or it's falsy, meaning it acts like false. And the concept is actually super simple, as you can see right here. On the left, you've got your truthy values. These are the things Python sees and considers to be true. This includes any number at all that isn't 0, and any piece of text that isn't totally empty. Then on the right, you've got your falsy values, which are treated as false, and that's basically just the number 0 and empty text. The pattern is so simple. Things that are full are truthy, and things that are empty are falsy.
This whole idea of truthiness is the engine that drives all decision-making in code. A program just follows these three simple steps. First, it evaluates a piece of data. Second, it determines if that data is truthy or falsy. And third, it decides what to do based on that result. This is how your code can react and adapt to all kinds of different situations.
So there you have it. You've got integers and floats for numbers, strings for all your text, and booleans for logic. And it's all tied together by this awesome concept of truthiness. These are the fundamental tools in your digital toolkit. They're the most essential building blocks, and now that you have them, the only question left is, what are you going to create?